3 of 32 with Elliotte Friedman. 3 of 32, of course, brought to you by GMC and the new Sierra AT4X. Friedge, what's going on, buddy? How are you, man?
I'm good. How are you, Tim?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. I feel like I'm doing a little bit better than Bruce Boudreau. We just had the conversation with Dan Murphy. It feels like to me, and I'm not saying that you're saying this, so don't radio Elliotte Friedman, that there have been 3 shots across the bow of Bruce Boudreau. One in the offseason when he didn't get any sort of extension for the kind of finish that they had. 2 with the wonderful After Hours and Scott Oak. And then again with Sat Shaw and our friend Dan Riccio on Sportsnet 650 in Vancouver. Do you feel like Bruce Boudreau right now is coaching for his job? Is this a longer-term play? Like, why have we felt this pressure this early besides the losses? I understand that part.
I kind of wonder, Tim, if it's almost like you're trying to make somebody quit, like sometimes, like,
yeah.
It's like Office Space or something like that. If you make work so uncomfortable, they might just say, you know, like Johnny Paycheck, take this job and shove it. But I don't think that's going to happen. Number one thing, you know, like on the one hand, you look at it and you say, hey, like this is a general manager who's telling us what he thinks, and in media we complain that people aren't honest and they're too bland, and now we're finally getting some quotes and you want to rip them for it, and that's not a good idea. But on the other hand, I think it's, as you said, it's been 3 times already, and when does it become too much? And I think we're at the point now it's too much. I think the Canucks should make a decision. You should either stop doing this, or you should let him out of his misery. And that's kind of the way I look at it right now. Make a decision. If you're not happy with Bruce Boudreau as your coach, make the change. If you are happy with the way it's going, then stop saying this stuff. The one thing I heard you talking with Dan Murphy, I think the Canucks players deserve a lot of credit because they had every excuse to fold in that game last night. They knew what was going on around there. They gave up a goal pretty quickly, and they still came back and found a way to win that game. And I think that says a lot of the character of the Canucks players, that they stepped up for their coach when it would have been, I wouldn't say acceptable to lose, but it would have been easy to lose. My
friends in the Lower Mainland keep telling me, if this is the case, if management didn't want Bruce Boudreau to return, then why double down with this team in the offseason? And the ironic thing about the double down in the offseason, I know mainly they're talking about JT Miller, but Bo Horvat was the one that didn't get the deal. Now he's second in the league in scoring. I don't know how sustainable this is or how long it goes, but you got a team with no cap space and a ticket that may be rising on Bo Horvat as we move along here.
I was thinking about this today. I did a radio hit in Montreal the day before the draft, and I said it would be a surprise if Bo Horvat didn't get signed this summer, and I didn't know about Miller. I was less optimistic about Miller. And I think that's the way that the Vancouver Canucks went into the summer. I think they thought they were going to get Bo Horvat signed. And I think a couple of things happened. I think that they realized that wasn't going to get done. It wasn't going to be, I don't know if easy, but it turned out it was much more difficult than they thought. And I think they didn't want to come into camp with both Horvat and Miller unsigned, and they pivoted to Miller. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea to sign a guy with 99 points last year. But the other thing now, you've got your captain, who's a younger player, who you know what the market's going to be for top 2 centers in this league, and as you said, he's showing it. And the one thing I always feel is the surest predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And the JT Miller talks, Tim, were absolutely dead in the water. There was nothing going on. And then one day the Vancouver Canucks called his agent and they said, we're going to get this deal done, and they did. And that's why I always think it could happen with Horvat, although the price is going up, and the fact that it's gone on this long makes it a little more difficult.
All right, they play the Habs tonight, and Juraj Slafkovsky, if you haven't heard, has been handed down 2-game suspension. Any problem with what seems to be the going rate for a hit from behind, especially if you're talking about Habs players?
I think it's expected. Also, Luff got injured, so
yeah.
That's, and unfortunately he's out 10 to 12 weeks. So I think it's what everybody would have expected.
Can we now tell players to stop? I know you want to deliver the message for your fallen teammate, but get the hell away from the guy that's hurt before you deliver the message?
Yes, I've seen that happen a few times over the years.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember who the goalie was last year. That was it Markstrom who stood over somebody who was badly injured? Yes. And I always remember that play, like him having the awareness of, I've got to make sure that this doesn't happen. I'm 100% in agreement with you, Tim. 100%.
All right. The Jets last year, you and I had a conversation about how they might be the best team in Canada at the start of the year.
Yes.
It didn't work out that way. Do you believe
No, it did not.
The good start that we have? I mean, right now, statistically, best team in Canada.
Well, I think they have a great goalie. And this league starts and almost ends in goal. They have one of the best goaltenders in the NHL. And I think when you have that, you can eliminate a lot of mistakes. I think the other thing, too, is even though he hasn't been on the bench for the full season because of COVID and the aftermath, I think Rick Bowness is a heck of a coach. Mm-hmm. I think he looks at what a team's personnel is, and I think he figures out this is how we're going to play. And sometimes it's boring. I know in Dallas last year there was some real frustration with sometimes the way he asked them to play. But it wins, and it covers up your mistakes, and it makes it harder to score against you. And I think that with Hellebuyck, as great as a goalie he is, you have to be able to say, we're going to make life a little less chaotic around you. And I know there's some people who look at some of the underlying numbers, they don't like them very much. But the one thing I think Bowness does is he creates a situation where people understand how you have to play. There's a lot of guys on that team who feel they have something to prove after last year. Yeah. That really helps you too. But I think there's definitely a changed way in the way they approach things as a team.
All right, I feel like the Leafs are the only team in the league that lose to the Kings, Ducks, and Sharks and then beat the Canes, Bruins, and have a real good shot to beat Vegas, which are three of the best teams in the National Hockey League. What do you make of the Leafs' play over the last couple weeks?
Well, we started off this hit talking about Boudreau and the Canucks playing for Boudreau.
Yeah.
The Maple Leafs have clearly played for Sheldon Keefe. I think that's he looked like he was on the ropes, and they've played hard for him. I think that, the Boston one to me was the big key because that's the way you've got to play to beat a team like Boston. And then they beat Carolina in a game they had every excuse to lose, and I thought they gave it a great effort last night. I think that one of the things that's happened, if they, Liljegren coming back has put people in a better place. Mm-hmm. I think their blue line has bodies where people want to see them a little bit more. That's number one. I think some of their players deep in the roster have been a little bit better. I think Marner has started to find himself. And the one thing I look at is Matthews hasn't been great yet. And he will be.
Right.
I think that they should feel really good about the fact they're starting to play better, and we haven't seen the big Matthews burst yet.
All right, let's do a little Boston Bruins, the good, and Boston Bruins, the bad. Let's start with the bad, the Mitchell Miller situation. Is there something that we can all take from this, that we can all learn from this over the last week? Because it was a debacle in Boston.
It was, and when I look back at it, the thing that stands out for me is that the Bruins in their media conference said they felt Miller deserved to have a second chance, but they never really said why.
Right.
And I think if you go back, everything should have been laid on the table that day. For example, we've seen a letter from the agent Eustace King about some of the things Miller's done, and some of those things have been proven to be correct and others have been disputed. But all of this stuff should have been put on the table that day. This is why we're going for it. This is why we're trying. These are the reasons we believe, and also this is the work that Mitchell Miller's done. Also, he should have announced that he was donating some of his salary to whether it was Isaiah or it was to an anti-bullying, anti-racist charity. All of that should have happened. I don't know if people would have understood and people would have accepted, but nobody was ever given a chance to, after that press conference on Friday, to support it. Like at that point in time, after that press conference, it was over. And I think the toughest thing to watch right now, Tim, is the way that everything has leaked out in drips and drabs since then.
Yeah.
And that press release today was heartbreaking to read. And the one thing I would really hope is that it stops, because the thing I'm worried about is that people are going to keep defending themselves and more is going to keep dribbling out. And I think we have to look at that today and how he's feeling and saying, we have to stop this for his mental health.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I thought about this today, because everybody's defending themselves, so stuff keeps coming out. And I think that should have all happened. Everything should have come out last Friday.
Yeah, you know what happened here was Isaiah's voice was last when it should have been first. And
Yes.
I'll just say this, like, you can make mistakes in your life. What people hate is when you try and BS your way out of it. And I think that's what people started feeling like. They started feeling like everyone's feeding us a line here, and that was why there was this pushback, at least in this instance, with the Boston Bruins. Now, I mentioned Boston the bad and Boston the good. They're off to a wonderful start, and it's a lot of their big guns. And 32 thoughts, and I'm not blowing smoke here. Friedge knows I don't do that for his sake very much. But 32 Thoughts is doing some different and some real innovative things, including interviews that are going on the Sportsnet YouTube page. You did a wonderful interview with Patrice Bergeron, and the topic of Brad Marchand came up. And I want to play a little teaser clip, just a little smidgen of the whole interview, which is available now on Sportsnet's YouTube page. But here's Friedge with Patrice Bergeron on Brad Marchand.
One of your longest friendships and teammates is Brad Marchand. I can't imagine there's two people who would seem to be more different.
Yeah.
What is the relationship like between you and Marchand?
It's great. I mean, and you're right. I mean, a lot of people say that, you know, we're like the yin and the yang. Like, yeah, I think it's you know, it kind of clicked right away. You know, I think he's, you know, as we all know, he's got the energy and he's got, you know, the temper at times, but just an amazing person, super generous, and a great family guy. And
I'm just wondering if there was a time a few years ago during a game where you turned to him in the room and said, you know, Brad, I was kind of focused on the game tonight, but did I see you lick someone on the ice?
Yeah, there's been a few conversations about some of the things that have been done from him. I can't say that I always can control his temper. Try at times, but he's gotten so much better over the years, and I think like it makes him who he is too. You know, like he just plays with his heart on his sleeve.
That's a nice little taste. You can get more at Sportsnet's YouTube page. Friedge, you going to do more of this stuff?
Well, first of all, I want to credit Amal, and Nathan is the guy who edited the video, so I think they deserve a lot of credit because they're the people who kind of came up with doing a bit more. We hope to. If people are interested in it, we'll do it. I think that's at the end of the day what all matters, but it's really nice to sit down and talk to people. We lost that for 2 years, Tim, so I've realized how much I've missed it.
Friedge, I like sitting down and talking with you from the wood panel theater that is at the Friedman compound in the Greater Toronto area. Thanks for doing this, buddy.
My pleasure, Tim. Have a great week.
There is Elliotte Friedman.